Welcome to Speakers and Stages, the series that goes beyond the mic and behind the scenes of powerful events. I'm your host, Lena Castle, event strategist and speaker experience expert. Yes, we're going to sit down and talk with event industry experts from backstage chaos to center stage clarity. This is where the strategy meets the spotlight. Let's get into it. Okay, welcome back to Speakers and Stages, where we pull back the curtain on what it takes to show up, speak well, and stand out. Today's guest is someone whose voice isn't just heard, it's remembered. He's a communication coach, an international keynote speaker, a podcast host, and an author of 4 books, including a powerful mission to help leaders and business owners move from casual communicators to confident connectors. He's worked with everyone. I'm talking about from Fortune 500 companies to the Baltimore Ravens, coached on storytelling that sells, and still somehow finds time to coach high school baseball. Even as a Yankees fan, and that's okay. I can deal with that. I have a lot of family members that are Mets fans, but that's okay. But he's hosted 7 podcasts, including the Speakers Podcast for the National Speakers Association. And today he's here with us to share the real work behind the message. Please welcome the incredible Robert Kennedy III, RK3. So welcome.
Let's go.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, come on. We're speakers. We got to make an entrance to the stage, right? It's not just hello. I'm so glad to be here today. Good morning. No, let's go. Come on, bring it.
Robert, oh my goodness. And it's been some time. Now, Robert, you just threw me off. But I love it. We need to be energetic. We need to be able to set ourselves apart. Now, your background, it's wild, from science teacher to speaker to storytelling expert. What even inspired you to build this business around voice, confidence, and connection?
You know what? I wish I could say it was an intentional build.
Yeah.
A lot of it evolved, but I think as I look back over my life and my career, there has been a constant through line, and communication has been that constant through line. So I tell a story about I was born on the island of Jamaica. And as a little kid, 1, 2 years old, I would ask a lot of questions. I was just curious. I wanted to know about stuff. We had a lot of people around us, family members, and sometimes they would get tired of my questions and they would say, "Oh, you talk too much. Bobby, you talk too much. Bobby, you talk too much. You ask too many questions. You should be a lawyer. You talk too much." And they would say stuff. And then I think this is one of those cautionary tales. Be careful of what you say to kids, right? Because I shut down. I stopped talking. I stopped asking questions. I was still very curious and I was still fine with my immediate family.
Mhm.
But outside of that, I was known as a quiet kid. Even now, as I speak to my mom, I would ask her questions and I'm like, "Ma, what did you see in me? Or what was I like at this?" It's just, dude, you were just quiet. You didn't talk. So we didn't know what you were thinking half the time. So that is that central tenet where it's like, something happens in our life where, in my case, my voice was taken. And so all of my career, everything that I've done has ended up being to either allow my voice to be heard or empower others to help them have their voices be heard. So that's been through teaching, through being a radio news anchor, to interviewing people on my first business, which was a gospel music online promotions website, to building sites, to building e-learning courses, starting an e-learning company and teaching companies how to communicate their ideas more effectively to their employees, to leadership, teaching and coaching and training, and ultimately moving from that into how leaders, business leaders, and small business owners can connect and communicate more effectively to their customers as well as their teams.
Oh my goodness. And obviously that's translated into now what you do today with
Yeah.
all the things. So tell me a little bit though about how you separate yourself in this industry from all the others that are in this speaking world. When we think about you, the RK3, like when we think about you, what are the things that we should be considering when we're booking you as a speaker?
That's first of all, that right there is the separator. The fact that you can say RK3, that's a separator. Because I'm Robert Kennedy III, my dad is Robert and my grandfather is Robert. When I was in high school or in college, mail would come to the house. And my dad would always open my mail and he would be like, it says Robert on it. And I'm like, dude, you got to stop opening my mail. But truthfully, it was hard because it just said Robert Kennedy. He didn't know all the time. Sometimes I think he did it on purpose. But anyway, so I started to use the third as that separator, as that differentiator from my dad. And
Mm,
so I just kept doing that partly because, okay, you type in Robert Kennedy on Google and you get a whole lot of people.
yeah.
You get some of the famous people and you get some of the other people. You type in Robert Kennedy III, you add RK3 to that, there's only one. So that's from a branding perspective, I've been very intentional over the last decade plus about building something where when it's said, people are like, "Oh, it's him. It's that dude. It's the dude with the orange shirt. It's the dude with the orange microphone. It's the dude that shows up with the dancing robots on screen. Is that's the dude." Right
Yes,
there.
yes. But so now when people see you and they see you as this confident person, what don't they see when it's prep time preparing for getting on a stage and the behind the scenes of behind the confidence of Robert?
Yeah. So I wrote this post on LinkedIn probably a week ago
Mm,
where I said people don't see the behind the scenes of, okay, you got to do a keynote and you walk into that keynote and everybody's saying, "Yeah, we're ready. Let's go." They didn't see you waking up at 3 o'clock that morning to finish the slides. They didn't see you making sure, "Oh my gosh, do I have my transitions down?" They didn't see that you had 3 other things before that that you really couldn't prepare as well as you wanted to. You could only focus on what's in front of you. Am I gonna get all of it? Am I gonna get everything? Am I gonna be able to deliver in a way that is what they deserve and justifies the check that they're paying
yeah,
me
yes.
to be there. They don't see that you gotta do this and you jump in town and then you gotta hustle out because you gotta get back to family because your son has a game that evening or the next morning, right? They don't see
Mm,
all of that stuff. They don't see, okay, you delivered the speech, but then the company didn't see the invoice.
mm.
And now you got to call and like, hey, dude, without being ghetto, run me my coins.
Thank you.
So there's a whole lot, especially in the beginning stages,
Yeah.
when you're all things, when you don't have a virtual assistant, when you don't have a marketing or social media person, when you don't have somebody to book the flights and all of that stuff, and you're doing all of that on
Yeah.
your own. Oh my gosh, it's a lot of stuff.
But how does that work now? It's a team that does all of that and you don't have to worry yourself with that, right?
We're still building our team. So yeah, I don't have to do a lot of it. The flights, the travel, the transportation, that type of stuff. I don't need to worry about some of the email communications, the invoicing, the bookkeeping. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. There's still stuff I need to do because I'm still the creative behind all of it. I'm still the ideator
Mhm.
behind all of it. So there's things like social media I'm still very involved in
Mm,
because I don't want it to be just, oh, let's post on social media just so that we can say we posted.
yeah.
Because back in the day, we would schedule all the stuff and we'd be in all the channels just so that so that we could be seen, so
Yeah.
that we could feel, I don't know what bucket or box we were checking,
Mm,
but just so that we could say, oh yeah, I posted on Facebook, I posted on Instagram, I
yeah.
posted on Twitter at the time. I did all my stuff. My buffer is sending everything out. We we wanted to be able to say that. But now I'm wait a minute. It's really quality over quantity in this case. How can I engage with my intended audience,
Mm.
with the people who are the decision makers, the people who I can help, the people who I can solve a problem for? How do I do that more effectively instead of spray and pray and just being willy nilly with it?
Now, and if I'm hearing you to say it's a little bit more strategic now of what you're posting, how you're communicating,
Yeah.
is that how booking happens for
That
you?
is some of it. And it's not even just that booking happens that way. It guides some of the booking because last year, was it last year? Yeah, last year, I had a situation happen where I submitted a call for speaker for a conference, and I got a call back from the organizer saying, "We're not going to accept your proposal to come speak at this conference because we've had a lot of submissions that had to do with AI and technology related things. So we are not going to accept that. But we want you to speak." And I was going through your LinkedIn and I saw that you posted a video on this topic and you did this and you said this. That would be an awesome topic for you to speak at our conference about. And I was like, okay, all right. She's, you think you can pull something together on that? I said, yeah, I think I can do that. And that's happened multiple times. So it's being strategic about it, being strategic about the message that you
Mm.
have and sharing that even when it feels like nobody's paying attention sometimes. And the post that she was talking about wasn't even something that was viral. Right? It wasn't even something big. I think it must have had, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 comments on it, and it wasn't viral, but
Mm.
it was there. I did it,
Yes.
and then it created an opportunity even when I wasn't paying attention.
That's amazing because you've worked with high level clients and massive organizations. And so you've seen a couple of different things along the way.
Yeah.
Now, what do you believe separates a good speaker from a great one?
Oh, that is good. So let's clarify this. When you say good speaker, are you talking about stagecraft or are you talking about business? Because
Oh,
those are different.
can we do both? Because I think
Yeah.
that sometimes speakers may not have a business, and if we're speaking, there should be some. Okay, but yeah, like,
Yeah.
if we could break down both, that would be great.
Yeah. From a stagecraft perspective, I believe that a really great speaker has great stories. And when I say great stories, I'm talking about the audience walks away and they remember what the person said. There's some stories that I remember from some speakers 10 years ago, and I remember not everything that they said, but I remember this particular story
Yeah.
that they told, and I remember the emotion that I felt at the time. I remember the room that I was in. I remember where the stage was, the lighting that was, the music that was playing. I remember things about that space because they told something that connected me to a specific moment in time. And so the speakers that are able to do that
Yeah.
are great speakers. There's some speakers that come and they got good content. They're
Mhm.
smart, right? They're experts in their field, and you can sit in the room and in the moment, you're, yeah, that's good. That's good information. But then a week later, or even that afternoon, you're like, okay, what did they say again?
Mm,
Maybe I should just go ask them for a copy of their slides. Right? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but if that is what people are relying on
mm,
to create transformation from the talk
mm,
itself, then as a speaker, I want to suggest that you add more.
yeah. But is that something that's learned and somebody is teaching someone how to craft their stories? Or these are natural storytellers? Like I think about like TD Jakes with the voice. He can paint the picture. So is that something that's taught or
It's both. There's some people that are just naturally really good storytellers. I think about comedians. Dave Chappelle has a phenomenal talent
yes.
for weaving a tale and crafting a story. He can tell one story for 20 minutes
Yeah.
and go left and take a detour and then come back. It's phenomenal. There's another comedian that I love, Josh Johnson. He's a newer comedian, phenomenal storyteller. Comedians are really good at it, and some of that is natural, but the ability to tell a story can be taught. It
Yeah.
can be taught because stories are essentially context, characters, conflict, conclusion. Those are the 4 main elements of story. I like to break that down in my business to challenge, catalyst, and change, right? The challenge is what's happening in their world, what's the opportunity or what's broken, what's causing them to feel or to experience certain things. And then the catalyst is that moment where they're like, oh my gosh, I realized that I needed to do this. I realized that something different needed to happen. And then because they have that catalyst moment, they then begin to embark on a process or they begin to implement a change. They begin to walk through
Mm,
something, right? And those are stories. And stories are essentially these mini journeys that we take our audience on. And so if I'm telling a story, I don't want it just to be something that I relayed information to you. I don't want it just to be like, oh, yep, I went to the store and I bought a bag of Cheetos and then I got back home and the Cheetos were good. That is a series of facts. That's a
Mm,
series of events, but it's not a story because it didn't involve me. It didn't
mm,
share with me a why. It didn't share a desired future. It
mm.
didn't share any hope or inspiration. It didn't really pull any emotion out of me. So, all of those elements, those four elements, if you're able to do that, if you're able to understand that and weave that effectively and understand ultimately that it's a journey that the audience is going on or that you're taking on and you're the Sherpa, you're the guide,
Mm.
then that can be taught.
And then now the business side,
Yeah.
you're talking about a good speaker that has a good business versus great.
Yeah. So, what's the amazing thing about speaking is
Mm,
that there are some people that are not that great on stage.
I agree. Yeah.
But Lord, when it comes to the paycheck, when it comes to the business model, they
What
are
is that? What's
awesome.
happening with that? How is that?
There are two things. Some of it is just straight confidence. Some of it is just listen, you can tell me no if you want. I'm gonna just go find somebody else that will tell me yes. That's one piece of it. And then there's some people that have just figured out how to say something or to lean into a specific area, a specific gap that nobody else is talking about, or
Mm,
addressing a specific perspective that nobody else is really leaning into.
mm,
And so when you talk about the business of it, okay, can I find a niche? Can I find a space? And when I talk about a niche, I'm not necessarily saying, oh, you got to find your industry or it doesn't have to be, is it men versus women? It doesn't really have to be that. It just may be what is a specific perspective or specific angle that only you are approaching the topic from.
mm.
And so if you can find that as a business owner and package it, or as a speaker and package it in a way that the organization says, you had a good meeting when you speak, and then the person, the decision makers, I never really considered that before.
Oh, that's good.
And so if you're able to do that, that man, your business is on the way to greatness.
And it's so interesting when you say business, I'm thinking about the speaker that may be pitching and they have a
Mhm.
business and there's a empire, not just, hey, I'm talking on stage. I have all these products, I have all these services. That I think that's a craft in itself, being able to
Mhm.
strategically pitch and you're always seeding and selling throughout the content.
So we have a lot of people that say, yeah, I teach public speaking, or I
Mhm.
speak about public speaking. But if you go into an organization and you say, you know what, I speak about public speaking or I teach about public speaking, but I teach about it in a way that allows people to understand words even before they're spoken. So now the audience member, the decision maker is like, what do you mean by that? And now they're leaning in a little bit. So now you're saying, as a part of what I teach, there is a process called NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming, which allows you to interpret body language. And so if you're thinking about negotiations, or if you're thinking about board meetings, or if you're thinking about project deadlines or leadership and your team leaders needing to figure out how to bring your team along, even
Yeah.
before they fully understand all of the information. That's the gap that I feel, or that's where I speak.
Mm.
And so I teach the skills how to do that with more compelling.
Language. Even and now that we have AI on the rise and people are using language with really woven in with ChatGPT and Claude and all these other different things and content now is I feel like it's a lot more content. You have a lot more people writing emails. And you
Mhm.
mentioned a need for better speaker expertise, not just inspiration. What should speakers be paying attention to right now? You have all this content, they're using language differently, you're using AI, but what should they
Mhm.
actually be paying attention to?
I don't know that it's so much paying attention, it's
Mm,
about asking more questions.
mm,
Because as speakers or even as business owners or content creators, what we are peer pressured into is, okay, I got to have something out there. I got
yeah,
to speak. I got to look smart. I got to say something that is going to make people think that I know the stuff.
yeah.
But what if you just went into people's inboxes or got on Zoom calls or got on phone calls with people and asked more questions? Because a lot of people are in this world where technology is so quickly replicating itself or where it's so quickly being produced, there are a lot of fears, right? There are a lot of insecurities. There are a lot of uncertainties. If, as a speaker, I can dig into what those uncertainties are, if somebody says, okay, I'm nervous about these 5 things, I don't understand these 7 things. And you can say, okay, cool. Let me take one of those
Mm,
and let me go back and see if I can concoct some sort of process or system or framework
mm,
around that one thing. And then I come back to the person and say, hey, you remember last week when you said this? I have this framework that I developed. Would you be willing to try it? Would you be willing to think about it? Or let's see what comes of it.
mm.
And so now they become your data and research partner in that, in addition to you being able to solve a problem that they're concerned about. So as speakers, we have got to become expert question askers, if that's a good title, term, whatever.
The assumption is speakers speak,
Right.
and the opposite of speaking is, okay, let me listen and let me
Mhm.
listen with intention. And then also following back up and being able to say, what do you think about this? Based on
Yeah.
what you said. That is,
Yeah. But the other part of the listening is I get information as I listen by asking great questions. It's not just about sitting and letting them speak because sometimes people speak, but they're just, as human beings, we can ramble, we can go down several different pathways. But but
that's my
if
husband
I'm
would say that.
if I'm asking some questions and in some ways contextualizing or guiding a conversation, right? Because as a speaker, I'm a communications person. If I speak to a client and they're talking about, oh, we need to do much more in our Q&A process, or we need to meet our project deadlines better, and they're talking about all that stuff. So I've got to ask questions that allow me to extrapolate or extract data that is within my lane from what they're sharing or what they're concerned about at the moment. So I got to ask some follow-up questions and seed it, as you mentioned earlier, with some specific terminologies or specific statements that are in the lane that I can help with or that I can support or create resources around.
What I like about that, honestly, Robert, because what speakers need to get better at doing is
Mhm.
when you're being hired or someone is being hired as a speaker, asking more questions about what is the goal, what are the overarching theme. I think that sometimes these speakers may be missing the mark because the questions aren't being asked. And
Yeah.
every speaker coming to the stage is disjointed because everybody's not on the same page with the goal of the company or organization, or even if it's a revenue goal, like what if everybody knew what those things were versus this speaker's next, now it's this speaker and it's a little bit disjointed versus it should be a,
Yeah.
yeah, I think.
Yeah. So when I talk about questions and crafting questions, you want to ask some specific questions as well, because sometimes speakers, they do a debrief or pre-brief with the decision maker or the organization that hires them. And they say, what's the goal? Or what would make this a good day
Mhm.
for you? And those are good questions, but I can weave a story into that. I might say, okay, I want you to picture where we're at the end of this event and somebody comes up to you to talk to you about what just happened. What specifically would they have to say to make you feel like, OMG, this was the best experience ever? Right. So now they've pictured the end of the event. They're picturing somebody walking up to them. There's a video playing in their mind now
Yeah.
about this. And now they are thinking about a conversation. I'm seeding a conversation in their brain so that, okay, people come up to them after the event, people say a bunch of different things, but they're weeding out some stuff. They're already weeding out something. They're looking for something specific. And that specific thing happens. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to come to you as a speaker and say, oh my gosh, Lena came up to me with 3 of her friends and they said, this was the best thing ever. So we've got to be able to create questions or create scenarios or experiences, and we have, to some degree, we handhold our audience and lead them down a path. And that's why I talk about storytelling, right? I don't just go up on stage and tell random stories. I tell a story that is going to lead an audience down a specific path, incorporating their experiences and their emotions to get them to a place that they either desire to be or they didn't know that they desired to be, but that was really where they needed to be based on the challenges that they were having.
Oh, That's so good. That's so good. I feel like, you know what? It's like telling a nighttime story. It's a safe space and place to be able to hear and receive information. A lot of people, you're like, wait, something sounds shady. Something's about to go. What's happening here? Some speakers, it starts off like that, and people are like, I don't know if I can trust what this person is saying. And because
Yeah.
you and I were in different rooms and we've seen different things, especially behind the scenes, I can only imagine the different stories. But when I think about you, I think about because you're with there's language and there's stories, there must be like structure, just like even as
Yeah.
you said with the four C's, there's a structure. Are you going into it with structure in your mind every single time? Okay, these are the things
Yeah.
that I'm breaking it down. Okay.
Always, because it does several things. As a speaker, number one, we got time. We've got you're hired to deliver a 60-minute keynote or a 75-minute keynote or a 90-minute, or hey, can you do this in 45 minutes? One speaker goes over and now they're like, dude, can you do it in 35 minutes?
Whew.
How do I weed out stuff? How do I make it impactful for my audience with a more contracted time? I've got to use a framework. How do I bring them to a specific place? How do I engage them? And then how do I land the plane? Or how do I put them, involve them in a specific process of transformation? And then how do I land the plane to then move them to action from that?
Yeah.
So I've got to be able to figure that out. If I'm just trying to do it on the fly or figure it out as I'm standing there with the mic in my hand, that's challenging if I don't know the structure that I'm working with.
Oh, that's so good. Timing and when things shift and change, and I know this to be true about you, is you're able to just flex. Some speakers are like, no, I have this content. This is how I'm going to say it. I know how I'm going to, where I'm going to be standing on the stage when I'm saying it. Not everyone can be that way.
Yeah, and this is why I do shows like yours, right? Because podcasts are just that way. Some podcast will say, I'm going to send you these 22 questions and we're going to go there. And I've been on those and oh my gosh, it's a, what, I don't know what's the word. I'll say that word because you're saying something. And in my mind, as an interviewer, I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be a great place to go deeper. And
Yeah.
the person looks at me and they nod and then they go to the next question, right? Which has nothing to do with. So if you're on podcasts and you're having conversations like these,
Yeah.
where people are throwing stuff at you and you're weaving and bobbing based on the flow of the conversation,
Mhm.
that so helps you when you get on stage. Because even here,
Yeah.
you ask me a question, I'm still using some structures in my
Mm.
brain. Because notice that there's some questions that you ask me, and instead of saying yes, I'll start with a story or I'll start with an experience because I want to give you an example to bring you to a certain place, to
Yes.
bring whoever's listening to a certain place so that I can then make my point. And then you're like, ah, yeah, I see it. I've made connections because our brains are always looking for connections. Brains
Yes.
aren't looking for information. They're looking for patterns and is looking for connections. If I give you information, your brain is still, okay, tweet, 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 radar looking for what's the next thing.
Mm.
So I've got to figure out how I can create connections all the way through our conversation.
And what's possibly happening is some speakers may overcomplicate it. And especially like when I look at a document and I'm looking at the big words and I'm like, okay, all the other stuff I just want to see, especially with people who are trying to get booked to speak and they have a 20-page media kit and you're like, oh, wait, I just need to see what like the certain information that I need to ensure that you're a good fit pretty
Yeah.
quickly. But that's really good that sometimes we may be over engineering or overcomplicating certain things that could be really simple to the point. Now, you've got the Amplify Summit and a lot of content. How can people plug into what you're building?
So the easiest way to go to do all of that is go to robertkennedy3.me. My speaker site is robertkennedy3.com, but robertkennedy3.me, you can find our program page and you can just click on that to see what programs or events we have coming up. And that'll share with you what's going on. You'll get on our list and we'll say, hey, we got something great for you that's going to change your life. Yeah.
And the other thing now, you had mentioned about teaching others. Is
Mhm.
it teaching them how to craft their stories? How can people plug in? I just want to learn from the master. Yeah.
Yeah, so yes, so it's the Amplify Summit, we just finished that up. That Amplify course or the replays are available
Okay.
now. We also have a 2-day voice and video influence summit or intensive that is coming up in August. where people will come one day, we'll walk through how to craft your story, how to craft a signature story, how to deliver that in a way that sells and compels, or compels and sells, how to do that and get feedback from your audience members or coaches and teachers. We're going to walk through that. And then the next day is about video. How do you take all of that information and replicate that in a video format through the content and through your content? Yeah.
That's so good. So there is an opportunity to work with him. Like, it's not
Yes.
just, hey, make sure to go to the website. I appreciate you, Robert, just coming out and talking with my people about not just storytelling, but taking things to the next level, and reminding us that owning your voice is the first step to owning your results, whether you're speaking, leading, or building. And to everyone listening or watching, stop chasing the mic and start building the method. When you connect with clarity and communicate with conviction, everything shifts. So I really appreciate you joining us on Speakers and Stages. And until next time, keep sharing, keep shining, and keep speaking with power. Thank you, Robert.